church,
We
life,
exist
school,
to equip you.
Oh, hey, guess what, guys? We're live.
wise and victorious Christian living. What?
We're live on the New City channel.
Hey.
It worked. It worked. No longer my personal one. Oh shoot, I don't want that over there because that's pulling on mine now too.
You're not in the shot over there, I guess.
No,
You're not-
he's
you're not-
fine. He's fine.
Oh.
We just won't be able to hear him.
He also doesn't have a mic. Oh, there is a way.
Oh, yeah.
There is a way that I can
Have him call in.
Is this taking
kind of.
Live call-in?
I can.
Oh, I forgot. We didn't get that Keith McCurdy guy. That Keith McCurdy guy?
The
I
therapist.
caught him as he was leaving, and he gave me his email, and he said he'll do something virtually with us. Do a whole show virtually.
Yeah, so that's one thing that we gotta figure out is like whether it's StreamYard or something to just do good like remote interviews with people,
Yeah, because it seems like all these guys are willing to do stuff like that.
and they all have setups for it. They all have like they're all used to doing it.
Yeah, remote. I mean, if he goes on Basecamp Live often.
Right.
Most of the time, guys.
Speaking in the mic, please.
Are you going right now?
Yeah, of course we are.
No, this is a tech.
Oh,
Super
technical-
tech support.
Super tech support.
What Old Testament king? No, this is not. What Old Testament king
What Old Testament king
should have put his son to death?
should have put his son to death but
And
didn't,
the Lord, like, basically cursed his household.
and then he was
And it
cursed?
one that, it was a son that basically.
David?
It was a different one. It was,
Israel or
son-
Judah?
it was
The
like
northern
son,
or southern
son-
kingdom?
Absalom led a revolt against David. No, it's not that. It was something like it was they had just gotten done with a
be
battle.
40 minutes in
and
before we talk about it, I think.
God commanded the king, don't eat anything, or don't touch. Like it was some commandment, like it, or some like
Saul?
I don't think there's a son.
Saul and Jonathan?
No.
Yeah,
I'm trying to
Saul.
remember, but then he didn't
kept
do
back
it.
stuff.
Like he said, I can't. Basically, it was a test, and he's like, I can't do it. And so then the Lord told like, I don't remember. It must have been a prophet, basically, that his household is gonna come to ruin then. And he did keep reigning, but I don't remember who it was. I'm trying to
Somebody who's read their Bible more than any of us.
I'm reading First and Second Kings right now. Okay.
So two possible, like that similar thing happens between Saul and Jonathan, where they're marching into war. He gives the command.
That's what it was.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. Thank you.
Tell us the whole story.
Tell,
Kev.
yeah, tell us the story now. We need the context.
Just since we're on the podcast.
Tell us the whole story, Bible teacher.
Not anymore.
Your namesake, dude, and you didn't even know it. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, John.
What's that?
Your
Ethan.
your namesake.
But so Jonathan, who did he befriend though? They did archery. What's that? David. So they did archery lessons and stuff. But Jonathan was supposed to had basically. I don't remember. It was a battle, I thought, and then they were supposed to like.
He was supposed to kill David, and he didn't do it? Is that
No,
what you're saying?
We're getting the timeline mixed up.
Yeah.
Okay, never mind.
Yeah.
Sort us out, Kev.
It's
So
Saul
you're
and Jonathan.
specifically talking about when they're going to fight. I think the Philistines.
It's a good guess because that's like who they fought 90% of the
Saul
time.
Saul makes an oath where he says, "Hey, everybody in the army is fasting until we're through this
was it.
battle."
Yep.
They go marching through a forest rich with honeycomb.
Ooh.
Jonathan dips his spear in the honeycomb. Doesn't know Saul has made this vow.
Yes.
Eats it. His servants are like, "Oh, well, now you're gonna die."
Yeah.
And he goes
Foolish
until
vow from Saul.
Saul's angry,
Yeah.
but yeah, ultimately doesn't kill him.
Yes. And why I brought this up is that you were asking, this all ties back because Andy brought up the point about if you are, when is it not a sin to be foolish? And he said it when you're ignorant. And I was contorting that example essentially to be, here's Jonathan who's ignorant, probably not acting foolishly though. Maybe that's the distinction.
But
Is ignorant and I guess was ignorant of it, and then what was Saul's directive everybody? Nobody's fasting, or everybody's fasting, or if you break this, you're gonna die.
But who's the fool in that story?
Well, yeah, it's not Jonathan.
Right.
It's
Jonathan does the perfectly natural, logical thing.
Yes,
Right. He's in a land
exactly.
flowing with milk and honey.
Mm.
He literally sees honey on the honeycomb and he tastes it.
yeah.
But
And
it's
sees that the
Saul
Lord's
who's
good.
acting like the fool,
Yep. Okay.
and I would
Making
argue in
rash
sin.
vows.
Yeah.
There's your Bible lesson for today.
Riddle solved.
Boom. Thank you, Kev.
You bet.
Boom. All right, Kev. Now,
He was all saved. That's the real question.
actually, all three of you, you need to move those mics closer to your
Closer.
lips.
Come
Closer
on.
to
You want me
the
to say it all
lips.
again?
Nope. We got it. We'll just have to. They might have to turn their volume up, or now they'll have to turn it down because they.
Doug-
I moved it away because I'm chewing.
Oh, well, you can pivot it out of the
I
way.
was a little worried about it brushing up against my beard.
You're
It's a
good.
nice sound. All right, boys. Day 2/3. Second full day of all the peoples.
Yep.
Alex and I missed half the day, so we're gonna need a recap. We can start at the beginning, but you guys are gonna need to carry us for the second half, and then we can catch you up on everything that Alex and I
Mhm.
did.
Well, George Grant's talk this morning was basically what Joe Rigney talked about yesterday.
Kind of. I felt like it was almost like it was. I wish I would have listened in reverse order. It's kind of like
Correct.
Grant was
Would have been
maybe
nice to hear yesterday.
whetting your appetite, and then Rigney actually went way deeper on
Because he
it.
did what Alex said George Grant does, is he gives you the whole
Uh-huh.
biography, backstory, a lot of good info, and then
Land-
sprinkling stuff in, and then Joe Rigney went deeper into the main points of him
Right.
as teacher and the
Right.
main points he taught about.
Which, I mean, I guess to summarize, the idea of teaching being loving on display for your students.
Yeah.
Right? It's like that's the bottom line. Show what you love in front of them, and do what you can to help them fall in love with it too,
Because you love them.
because you love them. Yeah. Yep. Pretty simple.
And then most of us went to Doug Wilson's
That's right.
talk, Governance in the Garden of
Good and evil.
Good and Evil,
Good memory.
which was great. I'm not really great at summarizing things. So anyone else want to fill in on
I
that
guess
one?
maybe I should have grabbed my notes.
I
huh?
wasn't there.
Yeah. No, you weren't there. Oh, look at
So,
John.
so it kind of started with, he was talking about, he was kind of poo-pooing on bureaucracy, but simultaneously saying, hey, administration is a God-ordained thing. So there has to be a good way to do it.
Yeah.
And that I thought that was a great insight to recognize that there is a good way to do administration. Our other friend Alex is hip-hipping and hurraying. Not you.
Oh, Elder Grotman.
But then he's basically getting into, and there's a lot of bad pitfalls in the midst of that, right? So his whole his the bulk of the time he spent talking about the language he was using was stupid people,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
which we later said is just synonymous with the fool, right? The fool of Proverbs.
Yep.
Um,
Budget for stupidity was a big phrase that he talked about. And then, sin, obviously, that happens, big sins that happen you got to deal with, that hopefully would be pretty cut and dried to figure out. And then talked about within that kind of some resources to help administrators and heads of schools and boards work out things. Recommended some books, Parkinson's Law, the Peter Principle. Someone can give some summaries of these if they want to. And then the last one's The Basic Laws of Human Stupidity, which is funny that this Italian guy wrote this book, wrote it in English as a joke, and then his family translated it back into Italian, and it got spread into other languages, and then they retranslated it back into English, or maybe republished it in English, because it got to be a worldwide bestseller.
Right. So Parkinson's Law, basically any task will expand to
Yep.
the time you give it.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So if you set a meeting for an hour and the agenda you have for the meeting could be done in 15 minutes, it won't be done in 15 minutes. You're going to let it take the whole hour.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
That was great. That helps us as a board to not schedule 3-hour meetings, to schedule to be an hour and a half and see what we can get done. That was good. The Peter Principle, I'd heard this one before. I don't remember where, but basically every employee will rise to the level of their incompetence. So someone does a good job for a while. Hey, you're doing great at this. Let's move you up to the next level. Okay. And they do great at that, and they go to the next level, and then all of a sudden they're like, I am outkicked my coverage, and I don't really know what I'm doing. But then you kind of get stuck especially in a Christian circle, everyone's nice. So it's like, well, we like John, not you, other John. Johnny, Jonathan.
John.
Yeah,
John.
right. But we don't want to fire him. That'd be kind of mean. So we'll just let him hang out there for the next 20 years. Hope he gets a little better. And within that, there are, you want to put in some resources to try and help people because there might still be more growth available. Something that Doug said his dad had recalled when one of his grandkids asked him, "Is there anything you wish you would have done different, Grandpa?" And he said, "Yeah, he owned this Jim Wilson was his name, owned a bookstore, and he wished he would have fired more people sooner than letting them flounder along longer in his business." So if you can make the observation and come to the conclusion that this person's just not the right fit, we need to.
Yeah, so the first
Move
point
along.
was to say if you're not sure, don't not only don't move forward with getting rid of somebody or something like that, but actually do whatever you can to try to help them succeed.
Yep.
Right? If you're not sure that they don't have it, man, support them. But if you are sure, do not delay, right? The longer you wait with something you're sure needs to change, you're making it worse.
Yep. And then the basic laws of human stupidity, there were 7 here that John wrote down. I kind of honestly didn't pay the best attention to that, but
You added 2?
There's
is there 5? I don't know.
Yeah,
Okay,
there's only
5,
5.
7. There's been 5, 7.
No, there's 5.
I like 7. It's more complete, so
Gotcha.
keep it biblical.
Extra music.
Wonder if I can remember off the top of my head.
Try it.
Here,
So
why don't you do it?
no, this is the best form of learning.
Teaching.
Not learn. This is one of the best strategies for memorization is blind recall. The first one was, yeah, this is not gonna be good. Something about
Would you like me to just read them? They are here. I guess,
underestimating
He's practicing the classical mind.
how stupid people can be.
Everyone underestimates the number of stupid people in circulation.
There we go. Everyone underestimates the number of stupid people in circulation.
That's number 1. Number 2.
Well, should we define stupid first before we?
Yeah. So skip to basically it was after the 5th point. He said there are 4 categories of people, right? There's intelligent people.
Yep.
There are
Helpless
helpless
Helpless.
people,
and bandits.
bandits,
Mm-hmm.
and stupid people.
So within that, in the intelligent, there's productive people. Bandit is overt sin.
Right.
Stupid, and then helpless.
Well, so
criminal.
the difference in a bandit and
Yeah.
a stupid person would be a bandit is causing harm to others because they know it's going to benefit
For their
themselves.
own benefit.
Mhm.
Or
Right,
a stupid
yep.
person.
Causes harm to others
And
for,
themselves.
for no benefit to themselves and possibly
Yep.
even harm to themselves
Yep.
as well.
Right.
That's a stupid person.
Yep.
Or a fool.
So then back to number 1 is everybody underestimates how many of those type of people there are just in the world.
Right.
But in
Oh.
any organization.
Right. Okay. So I don't know which point this was, but there is no other characteristic that filters out the
Yeah.
number of stupid people in
Yep.
any group.
Yeah, but it's
any
not
group.
dependent on any other characteristic.
Right.
Meaning, you could have a bunch of high school dropouts. There's
Mhm.
going to be a number of stupid people in there. You could have a group of Nobel Prize winners, and there's going to be a certain amount of stupid people in that category, in that group of people.
Right, and right because any characteristic, including intelligence, right? Including just general understanding of things.
Well, and why he was using it is because including Christians.
Right. Right.
Including Christians, there's going to be some people, unfortunately, who are like that.
Yep.
We still missed a couple.
Yep. So one of the points was the definition of a stupid person. Non-stupid, underestimate the cost of doing something stupid. That's still kind of in that definition we talked about. So you hit what you just talked about now was the second point. So
Okay.
that's the gist of that one. So those
Well-
books are ones I want to.
Well, number
Look
5
into.
was something about. Also, was it also underestimating the amount of harm that stupid people can do?
Non-stupid people.
Yeah.
Non-stupid people.
Right.
Underestimate.
Oh, what a stupid
Underestimate
person
What it
can
yeah.
do.
And
Okay.
and the kind of second piece of that is that the only solution is avoidance. There's no other solution to it.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
Sorry to be harsh.
So it's cool. I mean, I thought that session was good because Doug's typically talking about super big picture stuff.
Yeah.
You know, when it comes to this, where he
Right.
kind of got down to, because he's had experience, of course, just being a leader in organizations in the church, you know, in the school. You know, he started the school, started ACCS, has moved away from, you know, a high level of involvement in those two things, but he's still functioning in those worlds. So he's giving, you know, based off of his experience, what can go wrong, basically. So, yeah, that was good.
A verse he pulled out.
Oh, John,
for-
hold on. John needs the mic.
Yeah. No, I was just going to add one point that is a take home for, you know, people starting a school or administration is to not look like you have administration. Like, you actually have to be an administrator. And Doug brought up a point, and this goes to what you're saying, Alex, that Doug sometimes speaks on the macro instead of the micro. And then today it was really there's some micro nuggets in there, like this one, which is if you have a policies, actually be an administrator for those policies. Don't put them on the shelf.
Yeah, there's a difference in having policies and actually using those policies, implementing those policies.
Right. So the administration is good and God ordained and necessary. Where it goes bad is when you're faking it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, that's great.
Verse he used for that was from 1 Corinthians 12:28.
That's right. Yep.
So we can
Yep.
back that up that way.
Say that again.
Cynicism, or you said some people are cynics
Yep.
in an unhelpful way, right?
Oh, right.
But you can have cynicism because you love whatever, because you love people or you love the organization. So
Yeah. Or you
it's a-
are
it's a
aware
good-
of the people. So he called it Calvinistic cynicism, where we know the capacity of human sin, or we're not really surprised when people do something dumb or sinful. So not to be totally distraught by that. Be careful and look into things, but
Oh, right. This was the story about the grandson.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Somebody want to tell that story?
So yeah, they were had a family dinner. They had some friends over, and one of his grandsons runs into the room over the adults' room and says, "I love Jesus." And they're like, the dad of Doug's grandson's like, he came running down from the hall. I'm like, I'm just gonna go, without saying anything, but went down the hall like to check, like, did he go break a vase or something? Let's just.
What
It's like, oh no, he
what
really
happened-
just.
What happened before this?
He just had a movement of God's love in his heart. So that's great. But we're always going to be a little, cynical of like, is that really what happened? What's
Yeah.
going on here?
Anybody know why he went to 1 Corinthians chapter 12 to basically proof administration is biblical when it's in the same as tongues and healing and a bunch of stuff that he would say is ceased?
That is interesting.
You should
have an
find him tomorrow and ask him.
You have an opinion there.
I do not.
I think it's a good principle to abide by. You know, it's like it's just something that's we see how that there's order and need for structure with stuff.
Sure, I don't disagree that administration is, you can justify it biblically. I'm just wondering why he went to that text when there's other things there that he believes has ceased. He's a cessationist, so he believes that gifts of healing and tongues and all that have ceased. But administration's in that same list, and he's going to that section of Scripture to justify.
Hold on, Pastor Sam. If you got something to say, I'm tossing you this mic.
You say it, and I'll repeat it.
Sorry, guys.
In that same list of gifts is teacher, evangelist. So it's like typically with cessationists, they say it's the what do you call them? Like the
Miraculous gifts,
the
or sign
extreme gifts, or like the special gifts that are unique to that time, and not necessarily that they don't still happen, but they're not as constant. It's like it comes in blips, not in a constant stream. So there's some people in the camp that would say, I'm a cessationist, but still think that there are still moments of prophetic, though not in the same way of prophetic like Isaiah speaking, but you're speaking prophecy that's already been said into a current moment. So that's one. But
Yeah. The only
but
other
administration is still, wherever there's people, you have to have organization, and so that would be one of the gifts that continues on regardless if people are speaking in tongues or not.
From a quick word search in the ESV I just typed in admin. The only other verses that came up were from 2 Samuel and 1st or 2nd Chronicles, and it says, "So David reigned over all Israel, and David administered justice and equity to all his people." And then there's the 1 Corinthians verse and something else. So short on verses that explicitly say administer.
Yeah, I mean, that was just the first time that I'm going to try to derail us in this conversation, so
Yep.
if we could keep going.
Sweet.
First of several.
Good work.
You did it. You got Sam on the mic.
Success. All right. So that was the end of the morning, and then this is where Alex and I have no idea what happened the rest of the day. So, yeah, afternoon stuff.
So I'm going to jump back to the morning real quick.
Just kidding.
Because I didn't go to Doug's session.
Just kidding.
I went to the same, well, it was a repeat of the session. I think Carly probably talked about it on the podcast yesterday. And so, probably very similar takeaways. But one thing I thought was really interesting, he talked about, it was before the 70s. So this guy's a marriage family therapist. He's talking about essentially how parents are overly therapeutic within even the school, how they try to bring that into the school at times. And so he said that before the, I think, 60s or 70s, mental health issues essentially didn't exist, right? Nobody was diagnosed with depression. Nobody was diagnosed with anxiety. And he tied it to, before that time, the technology was super minimal, right? Kids were doing chores. They were moving their bodies. They were, he told the story about a family, or a guy he talked to who shared the story of helping his grandfather in this really simple task of plowing the field that turned into like a 12-hour plow broke, loading it up, getting it repaired, all this stuff, where it's this kind of case study in really simplicity, right? Where, surprise, surprise, living life the way we're designed, doing work, being diligent, taking care of the things that need to be taken care of, result in better, if you want to call it, mental health, overall spiritual well-being of children. So that was one takeaway. A second one, this is just interesting thing. Have you guys ever heard the phrase, children should be seen and not heard?
Sure.
Sure.
Yes.
What does that mean?
Well, I would derail us on something.
What do you think it means?
Seen, not heard.
I've actually heard it say about women, not children. That's not a joke. That's actually
I
in
guess
Aladdin. That's in the song Aladdin.
Is it?
From Aladdin, anyway.
Aladdin.
I mean, that's
Okay.
a lot.
Yeah, the whole speechless song that
No.
The pagan.
what's her name? Jasmine? Did she sing?
Did you call her the
The
pagan?
Says
talking
better
the
seen and
pagan
not heard.
remake.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
mean,
we're not
maybe.
worried about that.
Yes, it's from the new one.
Well, maybe it's the same though. It would say obviously from if you are in a toxic patriarchal society, women are beautiful to look at, but you don't want their perspective on anything. So they would say they're better seen and not heard.
So
I don't know if that is what they're going with children, but that is
So in the original usage, the original idiom, the meaning was, kids, we want children to be present in family gatherings and spending time with friends, right? They should be seen. They should be physically present,
but
But
not
we-
annoying.
but not annoying, not trying to push their agenda. And the point is, we want kids here. We want them learning. We want them listening to adults, seeing how we
Yeah.
prep food, how we pray, how we sing, all of this stuff. So second takeaway, it was really interesting to see how
I thought you were throwing us a trick question there.
well, I mean, even redeeming it, because
Sure.
what I'd
Yeah.
heard, it was
Shut
probably
up.
yeah, sit
Yeah.
down,
Yeah.
shut up. The adults are talking.
Right.
Yep.
But it's almost the exact opposite of
Yep.
that.
Yep.
And so then the third major takeaway. Am I right in assuming Carly talked about technology yesterday?
I don't remember,
Okay.
dude.
Yeah.
Big-
With
I just-
access to internet.
Yeah,
and
I'm
all
just
that
trying
stuff.
not to reinvent the wheel.
No, you're
Did she talk statistics at all of kids?
She did to me.
with
I guess I don't know if
devices?
she.
I
talked about
don't.
it on here.
I don't
I'll rehash
remember
it. I think it's important. He said that a grammar student, a grammar student who has access to like an iPad,
Mm-hmm.
it'll within 3 weeks. There's a good chance that they've come across pornography in some way, shape, or form. In a logic student, that's like within 3 days, and then in a rhetoric student, that's within 3 hours.
Mm.
Just because the way that they start, like it's so rampant. He said statistically like 90% of what's on the internet is pornographic.
That sucks.
Mm-hmm.
But it also calls parents to be more intentional and more diligent
Yeah.
in how we use technology.
Yeah, I mean, you can equate that to handing your kid a cigarette.
Yes, he even
Yeah.
he even couched it in
Uh,
terms of addiction.
You can make the argument that that would be safer.
It probably
Yeah.
would be. But
you could.
It's limiting the damage in some
Right,
ways.
right. There's arguably less damage that could happen from that cigarette than handing them the internet.
Yeah.
Especially if you don't give them a lighter.
So hold on, can we go back to your second thing? You're saying you're in agreement with, or you
Seen
thought
and
that
not
was a
heard?
good thing? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
it was just an interesting.
What if they're neither seen nor heard?
I mean, I don't think that's necessarily the best thing, right? Kids out of sight and out of mind, right? That's another idiom. When they're doing who knows what.
Yep.
If as parents we're called to train up our children in the way that they should go, that means that there has to be some degree of intentionality.
Right. They should be observing something.
Yeah. And they are. They're always observing
Right.
something.
So we
Which
should
is-
be able to see them.
All right, I'm gonna ask a different question. I don't know if this is anywhere close to where you wanted to go with that, but
I've said all I wanted to say.
Great. So, not seen, not heard. Okay, that means they are doing something independent.
Yeah.
Okay.
Autonomously.
Right. So, within the school day, the closest thing to that would be something like recess,
Sure.
right? And that environment is pretty intentionally and explicitly unstructured.
Sure.
Right? So, do we have any deep convictions about that specifically, as opposed to the rigor the rest of the day?
Whether we should do that or not?
Is that an intentional thing
To have it unstructured?
to give them time of autonomy?
Yeah, I guess I haven't really thought about it that deeply in terms of this is 15 minutes of giving them autonomy. I think we more see it as a good in they're taking a break from what they're doing.
Sure.
We're kind of right? We're educating them. So part of, especially at the grammar level, we're filling them with information, right? Filling them with knowledge. I mean, that's not all it is, but that's a significant piece of it. So taking a break from that, but then also getting up and moving your body.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So there's the moving your body piece, that's important. There's the getting outside if we can, that's important. There's the play, that is important. And then there's the doing it with your classmates, that's important.
Mm-hmm.
But then what we've seen a lot this past year was it's also a significant, it's probably the biggest opportunity we have for sanctification to happen for the teacher and for the students.
Sure.
Because there's conflict that happens at recess that doesn't happen in the class,
Yeah.
you know, because much of what they do is together and competitive. So
Mm-hmm.
you get to see the sinfulness come out pretty clearly. So that's led to probably the best conversations that we had all year with the students in terms of their discipleship from recess time.
That's great.
Yeah, and just to tack on quickly, that's not autonomous in the same way.
I was just gonna say
right?
that's not seen and not heard. That's actually seen and heard.
Yeah, like out of sight and out of mind. It's like, hey, go get out of here, do whatever you want, just be in class on time. But like, grammar school, there's a teacher out there with them, right? There's somebody watching, facilitating, hopefully giving space for them to sin and to correct it, and to kind of lead them through that stuff.
Yeah, and I'm assuming so. We kind of crossed streams here a little bit because I'm assuming the conversation you were a part of was actually talking more about parents.
Yes.
Yeah.
Specifically parents.
Right. Yeah. You said that's all you had from your little therapy session?
Yeah.
So that guy was on our list to talk to for interview, but he was, the time that I seen him, he was leaving to go back home. So we scheduled him to do a virtual interview later on. We'll do
Yeah.
that at some point.
Now we got to do it.
Make it happen.
Afternoon.
All right, so I guess I can set up a little bit. So this is now the third year we've been here, and this is the third time that they have presented what they call the Boniface Award. And so anybody feel like they got the story of St.
Who
Boniface?
wants to take a hack at it?
Yeah.
Story of St. Boniface. I could try. Boniface was I don't know the exact time period, but he was a monk who was more missionally minded, and he went into pagan culture, and in the specific pagan culture that he went into, they had this tree that was kind of a shrine of worship for them to donor, or what we know as Thor. Most people probably know him as Thor.
Right.
So these people would worship at this tree, the god of Thor. So Boniface came in seeing this as a pagan god, false idol, and his way of being missional, right? Instead of, meeting people where they're at and contextualizing and, rubbing people's backs and inviting them to try Jesus out, was, hey, I'm going to cut your tree down and watch your God do nothing, right? So he did it, and all the people thought he was going to get struck down dead as soon as he did it.
Right.
And that
Actually,
didn't
a
happen.
little help from the wind.
Yeah, didn't
Well,
happen.
and when he cut it down, it was rotten on the inside.
Yeah, and I've heard other stories of either been rotten or he used that to build a church building, and then all the people that converted at that time. So that is true. Pagans converted,
Right.
Yeah.
right? Which makes sense. Right, you're worshiping this god. You
Mhm.
think he's going to strike this man down when he cuts down the shrine,
Yeah.
and he
Nothing
doesn't.
happens.
And the guy says it's because there's only one true and living God. Come worship that God. These people are already used to worshiping gods, right? So now let's worship the one true and living God. And
Yeah.
that was the very brief
Yeah.
story of Boniface.
So every year they give away what they have titled St. Boniface Award, and it goes to a person who is exhibiting this same character.
Courage.
Yep.
Doing something courageous.
Yep.
To push back against the demonic culture that we're in.
Yep. And so this year that award went to Megan Basham, who was the speaker that Alex and I did not see. So
Right.
tell us about Meg.
So she's a journalist for the Daily Wire currently. Worked for some other publications.
Daily Wire?
Yeah.
I thought she was at the Blaze.
Daily Wire.
She might do both. Who knows?
Yeah. She's prolific on Twitter, X as well. So she, investigative journalist. She kind of dove right into what the award she won was all about. She went after the culture and things within even Christian culture that is getting infiltrated by leftist agendas, ideologies that are corrupting institutions that started off Christian. She talked about the Trinity Forum, started in the 90s, and has been slowly, or maybe rapidly, within 30 years, bought by the left. And publications like Christianity Today. So what she pointed out there was staff and editors or whatever of Christianity Today donating to Democratic campaigns for various campaigns in states and federally level, which most news publications have rules against doing that, because then you are not being a impartial journalist. So supposedly they've since made a rule change at Christianity Today, so good for them that they did that, but she kind of exposed that. So those are different things that she was talking about that she had exposed and pointed out, and just, following money, where money's going from these rich billionaires that want to influence culture. They want to pull people towards them. That she actually pulled in something that Doug had talked about from his talk this morning about, can you pull your notes back up, John, about Robert Conquest? So 3 laws. So she touched on the third one. The first, we'll read through these here because they're
this is any organization that's not explicitly conservative.
Yep.
Will drift.
Yep. So rule number 1 is everyone is conservative about what he knows best. So liberal with other people's money was an example John wrote down.
Right.
Every organization that is not explicitly right-wing will sooner or later become left-wing. And then number 3, behavior of any organization can be predicted by assuming that it is controlled by a cabal of its enemies. These people, take control basically by monetary influence of these places and move them leftward. And so she was pointing out where that was happening, and she, mentioned that same thing, those same rules. That's like, that's something I already heard earlier today. So that was kind of a big point of her talk. Even with all the DEI stuff that happened in the last few years, 2020 and all that stuff, like even a very prominent sponsor of this conference, Grove City College, had issues in 2020, 2021, and called that out. And I think they've done some stuff to weed some of that stuff out. I don't know the full extent of that. But that caused some murmurings amongst some people. We heard after
in
the
the
fact.
room.
Not necessarily in the room, as after the fact.
Afterwards,
like people going to take a bathroom break. And, I just can't believe talk that. But actually provoking the same sort of thing she's talking about of the evangelical reasonableness. Like, we just that's not nice. That's poor taste to do that.
Right.
But if what they're doing is wrong,
right,
someone needs to expose the evil and the darkness that's being corrupted of a otherwise good institution that's been slowly drifting potentially. So that was a lot of what she talked about. She was kind of right to the point with that stuff. So it's pretty good. She lived up to her award
for sure.
That she got. Other previous award winners were Rosaria Butterfield last year. Mm-hmm. She went after it.
Was it her or was it Moeller?
Oh, Moeller.
Moeller
was Rosaria the year you were there, or another year?
No.
Moeller.
She was there last year,
okay.
but Moeller was the one who got the award.
Okay.
They
made mention that
she must have won it with the Gospel Comes with the House Key book.
Rosaria Butterfield
is my guess. Yeah,
could be.
But then
she is a winner of it.
What, no?
But then Vody was the year before.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Rosario was 2020. Doug Wilson in 2019.
Okay. Doug Wilson 2019, Rosaria 2020. We don't know 2021. 2022 was
I don't think they were able to have a
Vody
conference in 2021.
Yeah.
Boo. Oh, right. That's when it. Yeah.
So that was that talk. We had kind of the rest of the afternoon, I got a little sleepy. So
John, Kev, Sam, anything else from the afternoon?
I went to one hoping that it was going to be give me a nice list of the canon of great books, but they were doing
right.
a very
I forgot.
deep
That's what Kev's was.
It was
treatise on
Great
what-
scholarly work.
Yes,
It was
Got it.
just above our heads.
Got it.
Yes.
Okay, John, Sam.
that was at like 2:00, and I was a little sleepy. Then I finished the day with Louis Marcos, and he's a shot of caffeine. So I mean, he was talking through the Homer and Iliad and justice in a society where there is no justice system in
Yeah, no
place,
law, no
and
rule
so
of law.
kind of instilling virtue in people so that you can have some sort of a functional society, which
Right.
is kind of what we need. I mean, what we're starting to see in our world. Like,
Yep.
people don't have virtue, so we're seeing the outplay of that.
That's good.
So was he talking about that you can learn that from reading Homer?
That was what he had pulled out. There was 4 Greek words. I don't have my notes. I have it written down.
Hospitality. You talk-
Shame and guilt, which are shame and something. I mean, that's kind of a little bit of his point of that. I mean, that's what Homer was kind of pulling out. I mean, he really just stuck in the text and pulled out different things within the Iliad and the Odyssey. So
Yeah, I just think it's interesting that in that culture, they're trying to teach virtue of what they want their kids to learn, what they want to enculturate their kids with through story, right? Through
Yeah.
literature, and it's not, it's not a hey, here's a list of laws that you need to obey, in a sense.
right
It's teaching them through
through the
reading
story.
them,
Yeah,
reading a good story.
good point.
Sam? Anything good from your afternoon sessions? Mic transfer.
I went to a session hosted by Jared Ritchie, who's
yeah.
a guy that's been leading us in hymn singing. He's somewhere down in Louisiana, a little southern boy. But a bit of kindred spirits for me. I have a degree in music, and so one of the things, I went up to him afterwards and told him, I got 3/4 of the way through a music education degree, and in the hour that I spent with him, I saw more excitement for music than I did in the 3.5 years of dealing with music education. And of course, his was ultimately, it's music pointed to its ultimate end in glorifying God and helping us understand we're not primarily Homo sapiens, but we're worshipers. We're what's the word? Homo adorants. And so we were made to worship, and so singing, when you're in music, people ask you, like, how many instruments do you play? And so it's like, you tell me how many. But one of the things that people always undersell themselves on is that you have a built-in instrument. Everybody was created to sing.
Yeah.
Yep.
And there's good singers and bad singers, but I think even bad singers can become good singers. But the point is to use your instrument to worship. And he talked about how, how music is a language, so teaching our kids in the same way that we teach them grammar in the English language and Latin, teaching music literacy in a way that they understand music, they can see what's going on. And so a lot of it was sort of a blast from the past of going through solfege and point and counterpoint, and it was a cool time. But I really left excited about singing more than normal. I like singing. Any chance I get to sing in church or with other Christians, I'll take it. But there's something really powerful about that, and helping to shape kids in a way that makes them love singing as well.
Yeah.
And not just in choir class, but how that gets used in math and chants and Latin, all the different places where music is at play. So that was really fun for me, and something that I was not expecting. He was talking about music was made to move to, and so he was making an appeal that we need to teach our kids how to dance.
Oh, wow.
And how dance is an important part. So it's like okay, picture this. You got like a 13-year-old boy. You got, half the class 13-year-old boys, half the class 13-year-old girls. Super awkward, like socially awkward. They don't know what to do, hardly like to make eye contact. And what he's saying is like, dancing is a way to teach people how to be social, like how to interact with other people. And so I was like, that's an interesting thing. He didn't spend a lot of time on there, but I walked away like, oh yeah. And I don't like dancing that much,
What's funny is we talked to a PE teacher today who also referenced teaching the kids how to dance.
Ballroom dance.
Yeah.
Well, and for those of you that aren't at the conference and couldn't go to this session that Sam is talking about, we did about 15 minutes with that guy in an interview. So he said a lot of the same stuff in that interview. So it's
That'd
good.
be great.
We'll put that out there.
That'll be great. Yeah, and I think, well, maybe we'll get to it at the very end. But, he led a good group of people in singing some hymns at the end of the day.
We can talk about it now. Yeah, it is become, I mean, maybe one of the best parts about getting together here is, end of the day. So two really long days. Tomorrow's a short day. Come in, hit the road. But at the end of the day, big group of people gathered around, bunch of sheet music, and just voices.
Yeah.
But this time, that was different than last year. We were in the
it's
conference room last year.
It's
This
true.
time, we were right in the middle of the lobby of the hotel.
Dude, it was cool.
Middle lobby of the hotel, no ceiling for 15 floors, just straight vertical, open air.
All kind of people just come out their rooms. And
Reverb out your eyeballs.
Yeah, it was great.
it was awesome.
Very cool. And then to cap it off, the doxology. It's just beautiful. Very beautiful.
Yeah, it's good.
Another session that I was in today was with an Anglican priest named Kyle Hughes. He talked about teaching for spiritual formation. And actually, he wrote a book where he looks at the patristic fathers and their influence, like taking the thing that they were known for and then applying it specifically to teaching. And in this session, he specifically looked at St. Benedict and talking about a couple things, the use of time and the use of space. Referencing the Benedict's rules that he created, and sort of taking that to the edges of how do you take this thing, which I think is good, and applying it in the realm of the classroom. And so talked about how we use our time to do all kinds of things. To use the time intentionally to the end that we're aiming at. And then space. And so a lot of it came back to sort of classroom liturgy, something that we're familiar with, that we use liturgy in our church. But what's it look like to have a, overall, like those macro liturgies of, you gather for assembly, you have prayers at lunchtime, you move to the end of the day, there's some sort of a blessing, a sending of kids back home to their parents. So a lot of talk about that. But even moving it more into the classroom of these rhythms of prayer, of creating space for reflection, which is something that, to be monastic involves a lot of silence and solitude, and that reflective time, the time to really marinate in the substance of what you've been learning, how that's a crucial piece. And so, you were talking earlier about some of that the autonomous time. And I think maybe it's not the same thing, but the time that you have to sit and process and wrestle through your thoughts, and to bring forth questions, then to have dialogue about. It was something that I thought was pretty interesting. So, he was just looking at that. How do we think of? Because really that's what education is. We come back to education as a subset of discipleship. We're not just giving kids information, but we want them to interact with knowledge in a way that leads to wisdom, virtuous living, to direct application. And I think that's what he's really after with the spiritual formation talk that he was in that time.
Yeah, I think that's actually super applicable because we've been drinking from a fire hose for days now, and all of us probably need a little space to do a little processing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. And this has been helpful to hear. I didn't get to some of these guys' sessions, so it's been good to hear what they're learning and pulling away from, and I'm sure we'll have plenty of conversation on the ride home tomorrow.
Yeah. So the reason Alex and I sat in on nothing this afternoon is because we got like friggin' masterclass from all these guys one-on-one. So we were chasing down a handful of different guys this afternoon, trying to get a little one-on-one time with them with the camera and some microphones. And yeah, it was fantastic. A couple of these dudes were super generous, super gracious with their time, talking both high level about the movement of classical Christian schools as a whole, and some stuff real boots on the ground, practical elements such as the music guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know how detailed we want to get on any of that stuff. Those will all be coming soon.
Right. Yeah, I'm just thankful. I mean, I never, when I had the idea of, I asked you a couple weeks ago, hey, you want to bring your camera to the conference and see if we can get some content. I had the idea of maybe we can get some interviews, but I never thought that every person that I asked would be happy
Oh my gosh, yeah.
take time out of their day and talk to me. Because these guys are here to speak,
Yeah.
right? So they're thinking about what are they going to say. They're talking to people. Pretty much every speaker that talks, they have a line of people coming up and asking them questions after they're done talking. So it's just like we're exhausted from all the information we're getting. Like they have to be exhausted as well. So
Yep.
for them to give us time.
I think that speaks to like the excitement that's behind the movement as well.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
people are willing to lay themselves down. I heard that in Jared Ritchie's conversations. Like to do this is not easy. Like
Yeah.
what all these guys are doing, but we love this stuff and we're willing to sacrifice ourselves so that you can fall in love with it too.
Yep.
And continue the movement. So I think that's really what drives this whole thing. People to take time for interviews, to take how many questions. If you're one of those main speakers, how many questions do you think that you're getting afterwards? You know,
Yeah.
to be able to field all those and
Yeah. Okay. So this is really interesting, and it's especially interesting on the same day that Meg came and talked, because I don't think it was her, but I remember listening to a panel that she was on with a couple other journalists, and one of the things that they were talking about is, it's blatantly obvious that most news outlets are almost completely all driving the same far left agenda, right? And a ton of the labor involved in that is young folks working for almost nothing.
Yeah.
Right? Because they are so bought in to what we see as lies, but what they see as this thing worthy of their efforts.
Yeah.
Worthy of that level of sacrifice. And that's a piece that the left understands. They get it, right? They have, pitched the vision. The message is strong enough that people have bought in and they're willing to sacrifice for it.
Yeah.
And that's a piece of this that we gotta own. And I know I'm kind of preaching to the choir here, because like that's what all of you guys are already doing.
Yeah.
But it's a really important element.
Yeah. No, I think it's important, especially for what I hope to be our listeners, which is our community, right? Our families,
Yeah.
Faculty, hopefully students at some point would listen to some of this stuff. It's easy to hear about classical Christian education and say, okay, I get it. That I agree. That is the best possible way that my child can be educated, right? But what is the purpose of that education? Like, what do you want to see happen? So we talk about, when kids graduate from New City Classical Academy, we want them to be able to go out and shape the culture, right?
Yep.
So, like you just said, the left understand what they have to do if what they believe is actually going to play out in culture, right? If they want to dominate culture, they have to get to work. But the difficulty it is to get Christians to believe the same thing, and all the fighting that happens within the Christian world about should we do that or should we not, right? The people who hate God, the people who hate Christ, are laughing at the Christian world because they're just like, yeah, you guys keep on fighting about whether you should do it or not, while we continue to go ahead and do
Right. Who did the thing recently? The left is post-mill and Pado Baptist, and that's why they're winning.
Exactly. So that brings us to so one of the interviews we did was David Goodwin, who's the president of ACCS, and he wrote a book called Battle for the American Minds, and he said basically what the left knew is they had to eliminate the Western Christian paideia, right? They had to, for Christianity, the Christian worldview to be passed down to the next generation was going to eliminate them and ruin them, right? And they would never be able to get whatever they wanted to see happen in culture happen. All of the stuff that we now see playing out.
All right.
So they had to eliminate the Western Christian paideia. And they knew that the way that the Western Christian paideia was passed on was through education, the educational system, right? Parents educating their children, parents partnering with schools to educate their children. So they went after the government school system. And now for the past 100 years, what's been happening in the government school system is it's the primary goal was to eliminate the Western Christian paideia.
Yeah.
Right? So all of the stuff that we see happening and them continuing to take action because they're passionate about it, it started a long time ago. And in that interview, I said, well, if you're Christian, you should know that started back in Genesis 3. Right? Where God said that there's now going to be enmity between the seed of the woman and the seed of the serpent. And that's just continued to play out, throughout human history, and it continues to be played out. So as in our community, yes, we want to give your child the best possible education possible, a Christian education, but we also see it as your children having that Christian education are now going to go out into the world, and they are going to be a part of the kingdom of God moving forward, right? Christianity spreading to the entire world, starting in the Quad Cities where we live. And this gets to our other interview, Joe Rigney, right? He talked about you want kids graduating, and maybe some of them are going to leave, but at some point you want them to come back even if they leave, right? Because you want them to say, these are my people, this is who I'm on mission with, this is who I'm in community with, and this is who I want to go to war with. And your students would come back, maybe teaching your school, but also just set up businesses,
right? You need
create
jobs.
culture in your area. So,
yep.
If we could get our people to understand that there's a small purpose, and not small as in that it's not important, but small as in we are just trying to educate your children, right? Give them the best possible education. But a bigger purpose is of why, and that's because we're in a culture war, like Pastor Doug keeps talking about, and we need people who can step into that war and actually have an impact, positive impact for the kingdom of God.
That makes me think of it was kind of an off comment from George Grant this morning, because at one point there was that Western Christian paideia in America, and it sort of got chipped away at till it became non-existent. But he said something to the extent of, he says, "Great battles don't stay won, but they must be fought in every generation." It's like that's what we're doing. Like there have been people who have been fighting this battle, and there's been times where it's surged ahead in strength, and there's been times where it's retreated in weakness. But even if we do get to the place where, man, all of our dreams are coming true, we don't get to hit the coast button.
Right.
It's like we have to stay pedal to the metal. We got to keep going.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. So this is an interesting piece of this. So there's a long-term vision here that reaches way beyond getting these, the youngest kids in the school right now, getting them graduated, right? There's a cyclical nature of this that we're aiming at. And one of those things that's going to require is for the ability for graduates to come back into the cycle, right? To be invested in the community and them have children, them send their children to the school, right? Big group of men here, 0 of whom are full-time teachers at school, right? So a huge piece of this is for the men of this school to be able to have work in our city, building culture within our city, right? How do you feel about that?
Now accepting job applications.
Well, so working in the school, yes, is great, but like case study here, that's like there's a piece of even that it has to be sacrificial, right?
Sure.
Because that would require a lot of the institution to be able to support men who we want teaching in the schools, for that to be their primary source of income.
Right.
So we have thoughts on how that really plays out well.
Well, I actually think that this is a conversation that Kevin was planning to have even off camera, so maybe he wants to have it on
come
camera
on,
tonight.
Kev.
Look at that, putting on the spot.
I love being put on the
How
spot.
far in?
This
My
has
favorite
been.
thing. This has been great, guys. Yeah, I mean, so, gosh, I'm trying to even think back to how I phrased it to you earlier.
What you said to me earlier is, like, if we talk about wanting Christendom to happen in the Quad
Right.
Cities, right? We want to Christianize
yes,
what's
yes,
happening
yes, yes.
in our cities. The school happening, you can think of other things that people in our church are doing. Like, it's already happening to some extent.
Yes.
How can we invite other people into it already happening?
Yeah, and specifically, I remember now, I was talking, we have this school that's starting to get running. We have 2 churches, Sacred City Moline, Sacred City Bettendorf, that are moving and gaining momentum. We have a gym, we have chiropractic office, right? And up until now, these things have been functioning as largely separate entities, which isn't, I'm not saying they all need to come together perfectly, but if we're looking at these things as kind of different pieces of the puzzle, what do we need to do to kind of, do we need to do anything, I guess, to bring them into a unified Christendom?
I do have a thought on this.
Great.
It's an understanding and imagination from the your just average person, right? It's the average church member who understands that synergy and has a desire to structure their life in the same way, right? Who utilizes services from other people, who, like they have their kids who are, apprenticing, right? Right now, I'm in the midst of training Alex's son how to do what I do.
Yeah.
Right? It's like it takes that level of just everybody understands what the aim is.
Yeah.
And everybody's participating.
Yeah, and this is probably something you guys keep me accountable to, because now that I see it, I'm starting to feel real impatient about it, and I want it now. But yeah, seeing that is helpful. That's a helpful case study.
I think the other part of this that's encouraging is that this is part of a cycle. So during the 1500s, a lot happened in the Reformation.
Mm-hmm.
So we recovered the doctrine of justification by faith. Worship was reformed, but one of Luther's main contributions had to do with the understanding of vocation, and that all of work is rendered unto God.
Yeah.
The passage in Colossians, don't work unto man, but work unto the Lord. Taking that and applying and seeing how this whole thing is an ecosystem of kingdom advancement. And so whether you're doing accounting work, or you're in the classroom, or you're a pastor, or you're in politics, or you're doing lawyer stuff,
Lawyer stuff.
it's all serving the same end. And I think this comes back to even understanding of a body theology, the members of the body.
Yeah.
That God has one body, different members with different functions, different giftings, different skill sets that are all to be deployed to be the best that they can be. So the pinky needs to be the best pinky a pinky knows how to be. An elbow needs to be the best elbow an elbow can be. And when those all are coming together, that's when the body really starts moving. That's what, now I'm in your guys' domain with fitness stuff, but functional body movement that's actually going to be able to accomplish something. And I think that's one of the overlooked things of the Reformation. And so there's some parts of me that get really excited to see these pieces that we've seen burst forward in the past, that have led to really great things, that have led to Geneva, that have led to like good Christian societal development, that we're seeing a rediscovery of those things, a reapplication. And actually, in some ways, like the command to honor your father and mother. There's a lot of you look back at history. There's been places where we've failed to honor our fathers and mothers in maintaining the things that they've put before us. And we're kind of coming back to that, and we're looking back more than just a generation. And many of us have godly parents that we need to thank and speak very highly of and thank God for. But to look back even further and see some of the church fathers who have led the way through this. And so we're not going about, the endeavor that we're on is not a brand new development.
Right.
This is deeply rooted in historical orthodoxy of taking our theology, pushing it to the edges, and not just for our moment in time, but thinking to the future, and not just one generation, but 10 to 1,000.
Yeah.
Right. That's
Yeah.
good. That's good. And one of the things that excites me, so Kevin, you mentioned that there's a couple churches and gym and all that stuff. I mean, New City Classical Academy, the hope is that it would be the school of the Quad Cities, where as we're partnering with families in that, we also see this three-legged stool being important, which the third piece of that is the church.
Yeah.
So although we would love it if all the families of Sacred City Church Davenport, or Sacred City Church Iowa, Sacred City Church Moline would have, both of those churches would have a high number of families doing that. We also want other churches in the Quad City to come in alignment with what we're doing as well. And right now we see the Rock Church, being one of those churches, and we hope for their people to be captivated by our vision and continue to learn more and more about classical Christian education, and we would have more and more of those families coming. But we're also looking for other churches to do the same, because if the Quad Cities is actually going to be Christianized at some point, right, we're going to need more churches to be on that same mission, right, have that same vision, and be partnering with them to do that. So if New City can be a significant piece of that, that's definitely, that would be part of the vision for sure.
Great.
Yeah. That feels like a good spot.
Yeah.
Amen.
Feels great. All right. It's been good, boys. It's been real good. Yeah. If you're listening this far, thanks for listening. Be looking
Congratulations.
out. Congratulations.
Made it this far.
Congratulations. Be looking out for, we Alex and I filmed a lot of content over the past couple days. So we should have a lot of stuff coming your way to kind of bring you alongside us over the, everything we've been learning the past few days.